Okay, we are out here at twilight, and I'm gonna do something a little bit complicated. I'm gonna do 2 shots at once, and one of them is gonna be on the edge of this infinity pool. As you can see, I am dressed for a dip. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get out there and find my composition with my baby camera. I've got the 5D Mark III, the 17 tilt shift, and the little tiny travel tripod, which is gonna perch on the edge of that pool. As you can see, I've mounted the cube to this little tripod so that I can do it blind, because it's kind of a nightmare to get this tripod head lined up without looking directly through the viewfinder. So I can do the cube totally blind because it has those handy levels on it, which is awesome for when you're in a tight spot and need to level the camera without looking through the viewfinder. Once that's set up, I'm gonna get out of the pool and set up over here behind the fire and get a long shot of the entire length of the house with this amazing view off into the distance. So let's get in the pool and get the shot lined up. I've got 2 simultaneous cameras going, each being triggered by a Cam Ranger. I've got one on the edge of the pool with an 80-foot drop on the other side, and one in the pool over here, right in front of the fire pit. And both of these shots are pretty incredible. I've got a 17mm on the one in the pool and a 24mm over here. And all I'm doing is just shooting back and forth, this one, this one, this one, this one, as the night falls. And I'm getting some pretty incredible results. So I'll do another bracket. I just had Colleen and David do a little bit of styling touch-ups for me, just because there was a whole lot going on there for a minute. I might have bit off a little more than I can chew, but let's see what we get. This is unbelievable, I'm not gonna lie. When I get excited, you know, it's a great shot. And I'll run this one as well. I've got the Cam Ranger 1 in this hand and the Cam Ranger 2 in this hand. All right, now I've got both shots with the windows closed. I'm going to open all the windows in the entire house and see if we can get the same photo but with everything opened up. That might look amazing also. So let's go get that done and then we'll get out of here. Now that we've opened the windows, I'm not totally sold on this angle. I'm just going to try to move that camera maybe 6 feet to the right and shoot a little bit more into the house so you can get an idea of the depth of it. Now, I'm keeping the camera low to the water so that I pick up the reflection of the house in the water. The higher you go, the less of a reflection you're going to get. And on both shots, I've taken care to keep the camera as low as reasonably possible. All right, so I moved the camera about 6 feet to my left. That's going to be your left also. And what happened was, just by coming around, I sort of opened up the interior of the house a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to like it much better, but let's give it a shot and see how it looks. I figure because I'm out here soaking wet, I might as well try another shot. And it's not that big of a difference. So everything is set and styled and looks gorgeous. And if we get lucky, we get lucky. All right, so I think we just got 2 or 3 amazing shots out here at twilight. I'm gonna go collect these cameras. Let's take this into post-processing and see what we get. Okay, well, here we are in post-production for our twilight, our pool images. We got a little wet, but we got some great shots here. And we have 2 versions of the shot. We have it with the windows shut and the windows open. Now, I like both of them for different reasons, and the edit on both is, I regret to inform you, remarkably simple. We've got a beautiful composition, beautiful light in the interior. All that really needs to happen here are a few things. We've got to do some contrast, some shadows, some highlights, and the white balance needs to be reeled in as well. But on top of that, I see a lot of distortion on the left side of the frame, and something that I deal with fairly often is having to correct, you know, whether it's stretched out lights or stretched out buildings, but the perspective here is just a little bit tough, and so I'm gonna sort of undistort some of this home, and you can see it really well here. Like, look at how these lights are getting stretched out like that, right? Just these lights look a lot bigger than these lights. They are a little bit closer, but they're also kind of being pulled and stretched. And I can see this fairly well, but that whole left side of the image needs to be reined in just a bit, because as it got closer to the camera, it became more and more distorted. Remember that distortion is a function of distance to subject, not focal length. And because that left-hand volume of the home was so close to the camera, kind of cantilevered almost over the pool. It feels like it's being pulled, right? Like stretched to the left. So, but we're not gonna worry about that right now. We're just gonna do our general Lightroom edits. And I'm gonna go ahead and start on this image. And let's see, at first I think it's just gonna need, its highlights pulled down. And as I pull the highlights down, I instantly see that this white balance is just crazy warm. So I guarantee you if I eyedrop this, it's gonna be crazy cool. Yep, and not the good cool. So it's somewhere in the middle. And again, I am mostly looking for that nice like champagne interior color. And that 3805 got me pretty close. I could go a little warmer maybe. Like 4000. And it feels like a smidge green. So I'll pull that over there to the right. And that makes a huge difference, right? The highlights can come down, but I don't want to go like way, way down. I'm just going to use the radial adjustment brush here in Lightroom. It's the K key. It's very similar to the graduated neutral density filter. And you can just paint in some of those highlights. And you can toggle O on and off to see what you've selected. And you can bring the highlights down at one room at a time. And because this is twilight and we nailed our exposure at the perfect time of day, it's going to be easy to rein that in. We've got plenty of headroom to play with. So let's pull up our shadows a little bit. Again, I don't want to go crazy. I want to keep the blacks dark. I want to keep it looking good. Clarity, texture, a little vibrance, a little saturation. I don't think I need vibrance or saturation. It pushes it too yellow. And I like the colors sort of the way they are. I do feel like this is a little bit too blue. So I'm going to pull that down with my HSL panel. And I can adjust the hue as well. Like maybe I want to go more this color. And I can use luminance to brighten it up so it doesn't feel so dark. Somewhere in there is looking pretty good. So this looks pretty sharp, pretty good for the most part. I'm going to go ahead and open this in Photoshop, and we're going to finish it over there. Edit in Adobe Photoshop. All right, so like I said, I want to rein in a little bit of this distortion. It's mostly up here where it's bothering me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find a line that will be easy to conceal our tracks in. And in this shot, we do have plenty of them. I'm going to go, let's say, right here. And, it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. I'm just going to be very, very general with this. I'm going to go right up that window, the pocket doors right there. But there's nothing here that is, there's no angles. I've got no harsh angles like this. I'm not bisecting a roof line. Everything is sort of easily stretchable, right? Where the boundary of my marquee is. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to go and hit Command T. And all I'm going to do is just free transform this. And I'm going to hold the Shift key. And I'm going to ever so slightly drag in the left-hand side of this image just to sort of undistort. And you can see the difference, like those boxes with the liquor, they look a lot more realistic. The couch a lot less stretched. When it's not, I don't need to make a huge move like this. It's just like an inch, right? And I can go ahead and hit enter. And I can crop to where I just was, to right there. And then I can turn that on and off. And it's very difficult to discern where I actually edited that. I mean, you'd have to be seriously, seriously sharp-eyed. See, and like, look how much better this chair looks, right? When we sort of unstretch it. Feels a lot more natural. And this side doesn't really suffer from it because it's so far away from the camera and there's no objects up here. You can make an argument that this chair could be reduced in size a little bit, but there's no objects in the foreground that are being stretched like this part of the house. So it's just a slight reduction of that distortion to make things feel a bit more natural. And there's no way, I can't even tell where I edited this. And I'm at 100%. So the only, I guess the only argument that could be made is like some of this in the sky. And if you wanted to conceal that a little better with a soft brush, you could do so. But it's hard to tell. I think I just brushed in the entirely wrong spot. Yeah, I didn't even get it. Right in there. And now you can't even tell where the difference is. So we're just going to chill out some of that distortion. I'm going to Command-Alt-Shift-E to a new layer. And I'm just going to fix my verticals and my horizontals. Drag my rulers out. That one looks pretty good. The roof could use some help. It's like this piece of the roof, right? So I'm gonna do something very similar. I'm gonna cheat again. Rather than try to skew this whole thing, because that roof, the central roof looks great. This part of the roof also needs some help. So I'm just gonna grab with the lasso. This piece of roof, it looks like that whole thing got bent during construction or from weight. Copy paste it. Make sure I have a ruler in place. And I'm just going to skew that one piece of roof straight. All right, I can hide all this stuff. And I'm just going to have to clone out a little bit of my mess. And I'll make sure everything else is good to go, vertically, horizontally. And it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and save that. And there is one version of our Twilight shot. If I want to edit this one, it would be the same exact process. But I like seeing into the house. I like what we get here. I could probably pull some of this yellow out. A little bit more there. I like seeing into the house. If I wanted to copy and paste this adjustment, piece of cake. I don't want that exposure to come over. Probably go down a little bit. But the white balance is totally different because it's a different time of day. But it's going to be much the same thing as the previous shot. Take out some of the yellow. The more I look at this, the more I just feel like this is the shot. Don't you guys agree? Like that's so, we can, the seeing inside is so amazing. And I like the idea here of seeing the reflection in the windows, but it didn't work quite as well as I thought because we didn't get that spectacular of a sunset. So I'm gonna say this is the one. And I think it's awesome. Maybe I can crop a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right, and up a smidge. Just to make it look like that pool goes on for infinity. Maybe I can center this a little bit and get away with cropping in. So it's like somewhere in there is my crop. Maybe right to the edge of that. I think that's it with that wide crop on the left. But there it is. I think that's an amazing photo. Could it use a little vignette? Let's see. Yeah, tiny one. But I think that is the best twilight shot of that house that's ever been taken. All right, here is our last shot of the night. It is a shot we are actually in the pool shooting over these two chairs that are submerged in water. We've got the fire off to the right. And this one, we got good bones here. We got great light on the inside of the house. We got a nice view off to the right, but otherwise I think it's kind of a mess. And we're gonna clean this up in Photoshop. We're gonna do a few new tricks here. First, I'm gonna go ahead and just get this ready to take it into Photoshop so we can do some, more serious adjustments. And I'm just gonna do my shadow and highlight dog and pony show. I'm gonna cool this down a little bit to get my nice champagne yellow inside. And I feel like this is a little underexposed. So I'm gonna brighten the whole thing up by half a stop. Even though this was a 5-stop bracket, I'm using the brightest shot. I had so much going on with 2 cameras, 1 submerged in the water. I had film crews running around me. Forgive me for shooting 1 stop too dark. So highlights down, shadows up, white balance to the left to kind of cool it down a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead, right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop. All right, so here we are in Photoshop, and here's what's bugging me about this image. The sky is just bland, boring blue. We've got this camera in the reflection and blocking our city over on the right. We've got some sensor dust. We've got some distracting nonsense up under this cantilever right here. And for the most part, and like there's a lot of cleaning up I like to do, like this not wet surface of the chairs down here can be improved. But we're gonna take this one thing at a time. So first of all, something that's really bugging me here is that the sky feels super duper boring. And we're gonna go ahead and fix that. I'm using Adobe Photoshop. The latest version is 2021, I think. And I'm gonna go to Edit, Sky Replacement. And Photoshop has this filter which does these ridiculously impressive sky replacements. It uses some, artificial intelligence and some formulas here and there to replace the sky in your photos without much effort. Now, this doesn't look perfect, and the horizon line is a little bit screwy, and the direction of the sunlight and the intensity of the sunlight don't quite match, and it's missed a few spots, yada yada. And you can see up here it's kind of gone into the glass and over some of the, like I said, the city down here. We don't get a reflection in the pool. That would be a big ask to make Adobe do that all for us. And we don't, So there's a few errors here, but on the whole, it's pretty freaking amazing how Photoshop can do this. Now this sky doesn't really match. I'll try to find one that matches a little bit better. We'll find a sunset sky here. And, again, Photoshop includes some skies with it, and you can click through. But they only really give you 10 or so to play with. And while this is an amazing tool, you should probably, if you're going to do this, build up a sky library of your own so that you can drop in and look at, like, the perspective is totally wonky on this. I can just click OK, and I can move this around to try to line it up, but the horizon is going to be mismatched and all that. So I recommend that you start building a sky library, and I actually have partnered with F-Stoppers to create a sky library that you can buy and load into Photoshop. I'm going to be using one of those skies to do the replacement here, but I did want to show you this incredibly powerful tool. Not only will I show you how to use this tool, I've already kind of shown you, but I'll show you how to do it the old school manual way as well. So take a look at the sky library. You can see that at fstoppers.com/store. Here's a quick preview of it. It comes with over 200 skies shot on all different cameras, Nikon, Canon, Fuji, Sony, in their raw format with the maximum resolution that you ever need for commercial photography, and they're all royalty free, so you can use them any way you like. Again, that is over 200 skies at all times of day from all around the world. A really, really valuable resource. Like I said, you can see that at fstoppers.com/store. But you can also create this yourself. You can literally drive to the top of a parking garage and shoot a pretty sunset. I did that for years to build a library, and it's an awesome thing to have when you are met with situations like this. Now, this is almost a great photo, but like I said, it needs a sky. So I'm gonna do edit, sky replacement. And I am going to, Photoshop will do what it thinks a good sky is. And I'm just gonna go down here to this plus button, and I'm gonna grab a sky that I exported from the sky library, and I'm gonna rename that. I'll just call this sunset for pool house. And Photoshop will load that into its sky replacement catalog. And now I've got 11 shots in here rather than what Photoshop gives me as 10 to start with. And I can play with these adjustments, right? I can up the brightness, I can lower the brightness, I can change the color temperature, and I can scale it. I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller. I can kind of do some interesting stuff with it. But what's interesting to note here is that this is one of my skies that I have brought in, so you can add your own things, and you can adjust this once you have it sort of in place. So you can click OK, and you can see in the sky replacement group there's a mask, so you can brush in and out that sky to blend it or unblend it. Now this is the original sky. That you can kind of see how boring the photo is without that impressive sky. We can brighten it up, and I think it probably will need some additional brightening. And so this is the foreground. It tries to do some matching of the light, the brightness in the scene. So it does a pretty good job, but like I showed, sometimes it's not perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna drag our sky layer out of here. I'm going to delete the layer mask. I'm gonna ditch the sky replacement group, and I'll show you how to do this from scratch in case that Photoshop algorithm fails you. So I've got my sky. Here's my horizon down here. The first thing I want to do is drag this in and just roughly match up the horizons. And I'm going to match the lighting direction as well. So in this photograph, the light is coming from left to right, but in our photograph, the light is coming from right to left. Sunset is over here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to Command T. I'm going to flip this horizontal so that the direction of the light matches that in our actual shot. Photoshop got that wrong right off the bat, right? But like I said, it's a powerful tool, but not all-knowing. I'm going to go over here to the channels mask. I'm going to grab, just like I've been doing, the blue channel. I'm going to drag it down here to duplicate it, Command M to add a curves layer to it. And I'm just going to brighten up our mask so that we have pure white where the sky is and almost pure black in the foreground. And you can get that, again, I want that foreground, everything in the foreground to be black and everything I'm going to want replaced to be white. And that's pretty close. I will take a brush, change the blend mode to soft light, and I'll just paint away some more of that transitional area, especially up here, where I know that that should be pure white. And I can change the, foreground color and go ahead and change this to normal and make sure that I'm getting everything I can. So when I do add my sky, it works perfectly the first time. And, this takes, what, 5 to 10 minutes if I'm not talking over it and explaining everything. So yes, the built-in Photoshop tool is amazing, but to get it done perfectly, it's also not that tricky to just do it yourself. And of course I want all of this to be black. So I'll zoom in here and make sure I paint that. All right, so this is looking pretty good. I made a quick mask with that blue channel. I'm gonna activate it. I'm gonna shift F5. I'm gonna shift F6 to feather my selection again. The feather is gonna clean up any little tiny pixel-sized bits that we lost in that process. Go back to my layers palette. I'm going to make a new group. I'm going to call it sky, just like Photoshop did. I'm going to drop that sky into that group, and I'm going to add the mask on the group. So my sky is in place. I need to scale this sky to match our shot and drop it in. That looks really good. There's a lot of blue in that background. There's two ways to approach this, right? I can make a selection and I can feather it by like 5 pixels. Okay. I'm gonna hide it, Command H, take a brush, and I can go in here and then, you know, at a lower opacity, sort of paint out some of that blue fringing. And I can do that. And you can see it's cleaning up in these bushes really well. I've got this down here. That's kind of a mess. But by feathering it, it's really easy to clean that up. And I'm not going to get it perfect, but I get it pretty good. And then I can reduce the or you know what I can do? There's a bunch of things. I can reduce the opacity of the layer here so that it blends into that blue a bit more seamlessly. I can add a mask onto the sky itself, a clean mask onto the sky itself. Take a brush, a black brush at 30% opacity and somewhat soft, and just sort of transition that into the skyline, into that tree line. And that's looking really good. So there's a lot of blue, and there's two things I can do. Like, look how blue the reflections are on the sides of the house and how blue it is down in the cityscape. I can either take blue out of the scene or add blue to my sky. The easiest thing here is probably going to just be to suck some blue out of our background. So I'm just going to add a hue and saturation layer, make sure it's not in that sky group. And I'm just going to take the blues and kind of suck them out so that the sky colors match a little better. And I can add a nice pink sort of wash over everything with a solid color layer like we did earlier in the tutorial. Same techniques. I'll take this, you know, like a pink color, 10% opacity, change the blend mode to, I don't know, overlay. And you can see how that blends everything together. And I think maybe 10% is too heavy-handed. We'll try a 5% opacity background. And now everything has that sort of nice pink color wash over it. And we have a seamless sky replacement, and I'm not gonna lie, I think that looks way better. If you want to use the Photoshop way to do it, fine. If you want to use the manual way, they both have pros and cons, but the tools in Photoshop nowadays are just amazing. And if I want to sell this even more, I can just, again, mess with the opacity of the whole group. And I mean, that looks pretty seamless. The only thing that I might want to do if I was like nuts about this is take some of the sky here, copy it, paste it. Take some of that sky, copy, paste, put it over the pool. I will flip it vertically so that the reflection matches. I'll just drop it in here. And I'm going to make a pen tool selection around the edge of the pool. Make sure I get the hot tub too. Again, using that predictive curve function of the pen tool. Give it a little feather. Turn that layer back on. Add a mask with that selection. I'm going to adjust the size here a bit. I'm just going to pull it down. Need to unlink it. Okay, now I have some clouds in the pool. It looks absurd, of course. And I'm just going to drop the opacity on this reflection down to like 10%. It's very subtle, but you can see in the pool we have a reflection of the sky. It's just enough to sell it. Okay, our sky replacement looks really good. Let's go ahead and clean some of this up. First things first, I'll start in the foreground. I'm gonna make a new group and call it Clone and Clean, and add a layer into that. And first thing I want to do is tidy up these chairs in the foreground. I think those could look a lot better with a little work. I'm just kind of pulling that wetness over the entirety of that leg rest. That looks better. And this one, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to copy this. I'm not going to get nuts with trying to clone all of that again. I'll just grab this, copy paste, and I can skew it on there, hopefully. All right, I'm going to add a little mask and just clean it up with a brush. There's that. Okay, and now we've got, there's like some staining or something on this pathway. Do a little work on that. We do have a big wet sort of, the big wet area drives me a little bit nuts. I'm going to grab some of these already clean tiles and just stretch them and copy and paste them rather than spend an hour cloning all that. So I drop that there. And I'm going to try to skew it in. To where I can cover my tracks with it. All right, there, and then I can add a mask again and just see how much quicker that was than cloning. I'm always looking for little pieces I can steal to avoid unnecessary cloning. All right, that's a significant improvement. Let me take out this little reflection down here. Okay, so our tiles have been cleaned up. Our chairs have been cleaned up. Let's get this tripod out of here. I'm gonna add yet another layer. This was our other camera that was getting the 1-point perspective. So, and this is just going to be more of the same. Just a little bit of cloning here. My favorite part of architectural photography, endless cloning. All right, there is our shot, minus the camera, cleaned up tiles. Just get a couple of these cameras out of here. Take these out. You know what, I think those lights were burnt out, so I'm gonna turn them back on rather than take them out. Get this camera go. Get this camera to go away. Keep it consistent with the upstairs. We'll take this guy out. I don't get cameras in your bedroom while you sleep. That kind of weirds me out. Side note. And then some sensor dust. And that is going to be our picture. I'm going to go ahead and save this back into Lightroom, and we'll do our last global adjustments there. Okay, here we are in Lightroom. Let's just do some contrast. We haven't added any of that yet. You can see that cleans things up nicely. A little texture, a little clarity. Don't think we need saturation or anything. Do we need a vignette? How's my maybe I'll go like a little nudge on exposure. Tiniest of vignettes. And I'm going to apply some lens correction or some distortion correction as usual. Make sure everything's nice and straight. And we'll get this line as well because this is a 1-point perspective. And there you have it, guys. Great shot. Here is where we started, and here's where we ended up. So, in my opinion, a rather significant improvement to this picture. It didn't need a lot messed with in terms of the bones of it. Like I said, I like the interior light. We didn't need to add light. Just a sky and some cleanup, and it looks amazing. I'm really psyched with how this came out. I love the subtle sky with the little color in it and the fireplace on the right. Cleaning it up certainly added a lot, and there's a lot of great stuff to look at in this photo. So that's a wrap on this house. I hope you learned some cool techniques for, sort of spicing up your own photography. Let's go back out on location and get to it.